Hey guys, this is Jimmy coming at you with another video in my Wrestling Reimagining series for WCW 1999. In this video, I'll be tackling the April PPV event, Spring Stampede. Now, before I get started, I just want to take this opportunity to pay my condolences to Scott Hall, who sadly passed away a couple weeks ago. Apparently, he had to undergo hip surgery, and so during the process, he suffered 3 heart attacks. And it got to a point where he had to get taken under life support. Yeah, just a very tragic news. And I know I haven't come up on here much sooner when the news leaked. But you know, grief, we all grieve in different ways. And, you know, it just took me a while to kind of process everything that's happened the past few weeks. My thoughts and prayers go out to his family, his friends, and, you know, all the wrestlers that have worked with him throughout the years. Yeah, so if you think about Scott Hall, was a big part, especially when it came to his contributions towards the wrestling industry. Being involved in, the first ladder match on WWF TV against Shawn Michaels. Granted, there was a ladder match that was that had taken place a couple years before that with Shawn and Brett, but as far as a mainstream outlet is concerned, when it comes to showcasing the first ladder match on a big stage. So the ladder match that Shawn Razor had, especially when it came to the Intercontinental title, was very revolutionary for its time. And just the storytelling of 2 guys just doing everything they can to retrieve the Intercontinental title belt that was hanging above the ring was very new, especially to the casual fans that weren't familiar with a ladder match when it came to wrestling. So that actually really put the match stipulation on the map. And over the years, we would see numerous ladder matches and seeing all new kind of innovations, especially when it came to those high spots. But for this time period, I mean, it was still very surreal, just seeing him hold the 2 sets of Intercontinental title belts since Shawn Michaels was off TV. So apparently they had to determine an interim IC champ. So Razor Ramon would win that belt, and then he and Shawn would fight it out to see who's the undisputed IC champion. And Razor Ramon got that one big moment to hold both title belts. So yeah, just a really incredible match. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. And also, not to mention that he was a pivotal part as to laying the foundation for the formation of what would turn out to be the NWO. And, even that stable would leave a impact in WCW, and even just changing the landscape of professional wrestling, blurring the lines of what's real, and just seeing all the faces and heels of WCW kind of come together to take out this outside force that's gonna, take over WCW. And Scott Hall led the charge, when it first started. It'd be very interesting, how different things would be if it not for the NWO, and would we even be talking about wrestling at this time? Would I even be getting into professional wrestling? Because, I mean, you wouldn't have an Attitude Era. At least it wouldn't force WWE to change their presentation as a result of WCW kicking the WWF's ass in the ratings, thanks largely in part to the NWO storyline. And, Scott Hall was one of the founding fathers of that group and really helped jumpstart that whole faction war, I guess you could say, or the war between 2 federations. But basically you get the idea, how I would be as a wrestling fan, where would I be if the NWO didn't happen, and if we never got a renaissance in bringing pro wrestling back in the mainstream since the Hulkamania days. It's just something to really think about. And Scott Hall is just a very incredible performer, not just in ring wise, but even character wise. And his Razor Ramon persona. He really hit it in the head, and taking inspiration from Scarface. Just a very wonderful character, just brought a lot of life to it. He also had a hand in coming up with the Crow idea for Sting when he made that transformation from Surfer Sting into the black and white face paint Sting that we all know and love. So like Scott Hall's love for movies also had a hand in it, you know, and the Crow with the late Brandon Lee. So so he was a pivotal part also in coming up with the idea of Sting going from kind of like this colorful all-around good guy into like this lone wolf that's like you don't know where he stands. Like he has this kind of like mysterious aura about him, and he was like the franchise of WCW, so having him fend off like the big bad villains like the NWO, it was kind of like that classic story of good versus evil. The Crow being as much of a cult hit that it was during that time would be the inspiration for Sting making that transformation. And you gotta give props to Scott Hall for that, for making that possible. So yeah, I mean, rest in peace, Scott Hall. You may be gone, but you're never forgotten. Your legacy still lives on for many generations to come. So yeah, just want to kind of give out my thoughts on that. And with that being said, I might as well just kind of kick off this sort of fantasy booking. Really try and put out the best show that I could possibly can. I mean, Spring Stampede 99 was... it's going to be a pretty challenging card to rebook because of just how good of a quality of a card that this show was. And it's regarded as one of the last good WCW pay-per-views. Unfortunately, the company would just start to go on a downward spiral in terms of quality and in terms of like direction. So yeah, going into the show, no title changes, so might as well just kind of get into the nitty-gritty of things. So we're going to start off with our opening match, and in this card I have Rey Mysterio Jr. going one-on-one against Blitzkreig. Yeah, so this is a Cruiserweight style match just to spotlight these two wrestlers. So want to, start off something hot. And yeah, just not really much build-up, if any, just to get Mysterio on the card and also spotlight a new wrestler at the time being Blitzkreig. Yeah, just a very obscure worker. I mean, I tried my best to find information regarding about him, but it's, like I said, it's just one of the very obscure Cruiserweight wrestlers in WCW. And I would have Rey Mysterio go over with the West Coast pop. So yeah, so kind of give Mysterio a clean win on pay-per-view, since I haven't really been giving him any victories. So might as well just kind of utilize this time to really give some credibility to Rey in the process. And then my second match I have is Hack going one-on-one against Barry Darsow. Now, Barry was one of the members of Demolition, and during the late 90s, he was sporting this new gimmick where he had this whole aspirations of being a golf player. And then there would be like segments on Saturday night where he'd just be golfing with certain wrestlers and, just bragging about how much of a pro that he is when it comes to golfing. I mean, he's just really in over his head. And Hack, being kind of like the outsider from the land of extreme, just is sick and tired of him. He just thinks that, he just finds Barry Darsow annoying because he keeps bragging about how great of a golfer he is, even despite working in a wrestling company. Not really much of a long match. We could just have Hack come out there and just beat the sense out of Barry Darsow, kind of like what he did with the ECW Zombie back in 2006. Kind of like that. And Hack is going to like completely decimate Darsow and, and then basically defeating him in that match. So just a little fun little squash just to kind of get Hack over and, just have Barry get put into his place for that matter. So now we move over into our Cruiserweight title match. So I have the champion Billy Kidman going one-on-one against Chavo Guerrero. Now, Chavo in 99... So this was just nearly a year removed from his on and off beef with Eddie Guerrero. So Chavo's kind of branched out as his own man. He had Pepe, And, he is like this mannequin horse that he carries around. Kind of like his version of what Al Snow was with Head. So it's kind of like this with Chavo Guerrero. And they had him with Pepe for a while, and then Pepe got shredded, and Chavo was just, like, he's just started losing his mind, and we're going to actually try and play up that character, or, like, play up that kind of, like, psychology of that, because, like, especially the idea of losing someone close to you. Over the weeks, he's starting to get a lot more aggressive in his matches. Like, he's winning matches, and he's just, like, fired up than ever, and it's sort of like planting the seeds of him slowly going off the deep end. Like, he's starting to show signs of turning heel, and this kind of comes to a head when Chavo wins the #1 contenders match, and so he like takes on Billy Kidman, who's been the Cruiserweight champion since, I want to say, World War III, but it was definitely like somewhere at the tail end of '98. We could have moments where Billy Kidman tried to go for a shooting star press, but a lot of the times, like, either Chavo just slides out of the ring, or Chavo like dodges, causing Kidman to land hard on the ring canvas. There'll be a lot of reversals here and there, and the finish of the match is going to have, I would say, Chavo's trying to go for a gory special, and then Billy Kidman just immediately counters it into like a sunset flip roll-up of sorts, getting the 3 count. And, Chavo's like in shock and awe. It's like he can't believe it. Chavo snaps, and like he attacks Billy Kidman, and he just like beats him up. He could just basically take his frustrations out on his opponent. That's basically what I'm going to do with the Chavo Guerrero, is to kind of really lean towards to the dark side. Now we go over into our tag team title bout. So we have Juvi and Psicosis of the LWO defending their belts against Horsemen members Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit. Yeah, really trying to continue selling the tag team division and really kind of showcase the importance and prestige that the belt represents. Having Juventud and Psicosis just go through a tear in the division and spending 2 months holding the belts and defending them on TV. Benoit and Malenko have also been on a winning streak as a team as well, and the announcers will definitely acknowledge that. So this kind of comes all to a head here at Spring Stampede. You would just have like 2 cruiserweight wrestlers mixed in with 2 submissionists. One's a hybrid of a technical wrestler and a cruiserweight, so that being Dean Malenko. So that actually makes 3 cruiserweights. This could really, you could really tell some potentially good stories, especially based on those varieties of wrestling styles, and will definitely be put to the test here at this pay-per-view. Juvi and Psicosis have been on a hot streak, but unfortunately all good things come to an end. But the finish of the match would have Benoit and Malenko locking in their respective submission finishers. So Benoit had his crossface, Malenko had his Texas Cloverleaf, so there could be like a moment there where they're just locking in submission holds at the same time, and then like Juvi and Psicosis could tap out or submit simultaneously, so allowing Benoit and Malenko to become the new World Tag Team Champions in the process. So, Arn Anderson, being the manager of the Horsemen, is going to, basically celebrate with the 2 wrestlers. And even during backstage interview, you could say, you could have Benoit and Malenko just celebrating with a bottle of beers, and, they're going to celebrate with champagne, classic Horsemen type promos that you would see even in their heyday, all that sort of stuff. So I would have Benoit and Malenko come out on top as your new World Tag Team Champions. Juvi and Psicosis start having a falling out, or you could at least plant the seeds of a falling out between the 2. So this kind of leads to like a scuffle that ensues, and you can even have like referees like coming out there to restrain the 2, or even in this case, being that the LWO is still around in this scenario, so they could also come out there and to kind of break them apart for that matter. But yeah, so it's pretty clear that the LWO's time on top may be over. So now we move on into next match, and this is a match that might not sit well with some of you viewers, but I can assure you there are much better matches to come. I have Jerry Flynn going one-on-one against Ernest the Cat Miller. So Ernest Miller being a trained martial artist in karate, and you have Jerry Flynn who's an established shoot fighter. You know, I would have Ernest Miller going over Jerry Flynn in this match just to really kind of put over the Cat, since he was actually pretty over somewhat as a heel, and he was spotlighted heavily in 98 going into 99. He even had Sonny Ono as his manager, his sensei, however you want to refer to his position as. Ernest Miller and Sonny Ono have their connection going on, and they'll definitely play a part in costing Jerry Flynn the match. So he's going to go over Jerry Flynn. He's going to show that he is, without a doubt, the undisputed martial artist to cross over into professional wrestling. And we, sell that whole idea, especially in the build-up into this pay-per-view. So then we get to Raven's rules. And I have Raven going one-on-one against Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, Bam Bam Bigelow from the previous month came up short against another hardcore wrestler like Hack, and he's also had his bright spots, because now it seems like he and DDP seem to showcase a little more respect, like they're helping each other out in matches, and there's a bit of a partnership that seems to be going on. Raven's kind of not in the best place that he is in either, because he no longer has a faction, and he had Canyon for a time. Bam Bam had taken out Chris Canyon in a match on Nitro or Thunder, and it got to a point where Canyon had to get sidelined, which would explain Raven pairing up with Perry Saturn to take the spot of Chris Canyon in that uncensored match that I had them being booked in. Raven's looking to avenge his fallen friend, and he's been looking to take his hands on Bam Bam for quite some time, but he just never seemed to get around because he's so preoccupied with Hack. So this all kind of eventually boils into a match here at Spring Stampede, and just basically plays off like a traditional hardcore match, given that Raven's rules basically plays up those kinds of stipulations, like anything goes, no disqualifications, false count anywhere, and basically what your typical no DQ match. Bam Bam's gonna go over Raven in this match. We got Perry Saturn come out there, given that Saturn and Raven managed to patch things up on TV. So, Saturn trying to help out his buddy and doing everything he can to help, but even that's not enough to take out Bam Bam. So Bam Bam gets the last laugh. He goes over Raven. Bam Bam trying to get back on track after after the previous pay-per-view where he came up short. So Bam Bam's looking to make that comeback after that match with Raven. He did just that. So now we get to our double header, and this is the first out of those two main event matches. And I have Booker T going in as the U.S. champion, going one-on-one against Scott Steiner. So Steiner came out with one of the biggest wins of his career, going over Ric Flair by having him submit to the Steiner recliner. So Steiner has just been on a hot streak the past several weeks, and even in the weeks since then. And he's just racking up those wins. He's been selling the Steiner recliner like one of the most deadliest submission holds in professional wrestling. Booker T's also another wrestler that's been going through a hot streak as well, because not only that he had his brother come to his senses and patching things up and getting booted out of the NWO, but in return, like, both Booker and Stevie been holding the championship belts respectively, like Booker with the US title, Stevie Ray with the TV title. So Harlem Heat has gold to share together. So all seems good and well with Harlem Heat. And, after what Steiner did by taking out the man that cost him the TV title, and now Steiner's looking to get some payback on Harlem Heat, but it seems like they're kind of, Steiner's teasing the idea of going after Stevie Ray, but eventually he decides to go after someone else that being Booker T. And being the U.S. champion that he is, he did have a hand in interfering in that match, and the night that he lost the TV title. But now Steiner's like, you know what? Who needs the TV title? I want your U.S. titles, Booker T. Scott Steiner could pull out a better promo than I can, but Scott Steiner's going to be Scott Steiner. He's just going to run his mouth and just try to give Booker his attention. Buff Bagwell's also accompanying Scott Steiner, ever since he came back from his neck surgery. So Bagwell and Steiner have been kind of having their own alliance going on. But there's also little cracks along the way. So Steiner's also, in the build-up to his match with Booker T, starting to show a little bit of his ego and, putting himself over and not acknowledging Bagwell to a point where he just kind of feels neglected. And Steiner is just all about him. Like, he is Big Bad Booty Daddy. Bagwell is just kind of like, what about me? It's like, I thought we were a team. I thought we were best friends. They would end up having a tag team match to take on Harlem Heat to kind of put that to their partnership to the test. And, it seemed like they were teasing it, but, like Steiner eventually, him and Bagwell do win that tag team match against Harlem Heat. Steiner, gets a pin on Booker T to kind of give a legit reason as to why Steiner's the #1 contender against Booker T. So there you go at that. This was a match that they did in the actual show, so it's the only match that I had on here that I kept. Booker and Steiner definitely had some really great chemistry, and especially given the fact that these two wrestlers were part of their respective tag teams. So for a time Scott had his brother Rick, but now he's MIA. And, Scott's been in the NWO for over a year. Booker T, was branching out as a solo act. And, even though he and Stevie had a rift early on, but now they've, like I said, patched things up. Booker T is actually going to retain the U.S. title belt. And there would be a moment towards the end of the match where Scott had Booker beat, but rather than going for a pinfall, let's say there was a ref bump along the way. So even prior to all that, so let's say Booker tries to go for a Harlem sidekick on Scott Steiner, but Scott moves out of the way, accidentally knocking out the referee. Scott goes for let's say a Steiner screwdriver or belly to belly suplex, one of his signature moves, and then Steiner tries to go for a pinfall, but the referee's down, and, given that the referee's down, so there's no one to count for him. Scott decides to take matters in his own hands. He utilizes this advantage for Buff to, provide him some additional assistance. So, Buff Bagwell brings out a chair. Scott tries to pick up Booker T. Now, I know some people are saying, what about Stevie Ray? So Stevie Ray would have tried to help out his brother, but, Bagwell knocks him out. Bagwell, continues where he left off. He goes on to attempt to hit Booker with the chair, and, Scott Steiner's holding Booker T by the arms. But then, Booker makes this miraculous comeback. He ducks the steel chair attempt. So Bagwell, instead of hitting Booker, accidentally hits Steiner instead. And Bagwell's in shock. It's like he doesn't, he's in disbelief. He has no idea what just happened. And then, Booker just lays out Bagwell with the Harlem sidekick. Bagwell's lying at ringside. Booker goes up the top rope, hits the Harlem hangover. The steel chair is being removed for evidence. Goes for a cover. Referee slowly crawls over, hits the slow 1, 2, 3, and for Booker T to successfully retain the United States title. So there seems to be a bit of a rocky road between Scott and Bagwell, and Booker managed to come out on top despite the odds stacked against him. And Stevie tried to do what he can to help out his brother, and it looked like all hope was lost, but Booker managed to overcome those odds and is still the United States champion. Last but not least, we have our main event, the biggest main event that I've booked so far, and perhaps the biggest pay-per-view main event that WCW likely would have done had they gone in a route like this. And the saying goes, you know, all good things come to an end. And what we have here is a 10-man tag team elimination match between Team WCW against Team NWO. So I'm basically taking a page out of Survivor Series 01 and implementing it here in this main event. So on WCW side, you got the reigning world champion Goldberg, who had just won the title at the previous pay-per-view. You also have Diamond Dallas Page, Ric Flair, the returning Sting, and Konnan. And on the NWO side, you have former world champion Kevin Nash alongside Hulk Hogan, Curt Hennig, Scott Norton, and Bryan Adams. Goldberg, like I discussed, won the world title back from Kevin Nash after spending months and months of Goldberg just trying to plow through the NWO, and eventually faces Kevin Nash, the man that did the unthinkable and defeating Goldberg and putting an end to his winning streak. So the NWO eventually come out and address the issue, especially since Goldberg finally finding a way to bring the WCW title back to where it belongs. And even for all the times that the NWO has managed to bring the gold back into their hands, but somehow, some way, it would just wound up back in the WCW's. And it's been rinse and repeat, like every couple months. And, you know, the NWO is like completely sick of it. They decide to lay it all on the line. And for nearly 3 years at this point, I mean, the NWO has just made WCW's lives a living hell. You know, taking over broadcast booths and stirring up all this propaganda with their paid advertisements about how WCW is on life support and that the NWO's the biggest thing to impact the world of professional wrestling. And, you know, you got a movie star like Hulk Hogan and, you know, and also Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and all these other wrestlers that were also joining the NWO that they've been with them through and through. You know, that they've been in this war for 2.5 years. And on the WCW side of things, people are just starting to ask themselves, like, when is this war ever going to end? And that's just been a question that's been spinning in their heads for all this time. The tagline of this pay-per-view, the end of an era. And we could have like Ric Flair come out there now that he's back in his role as president, so he could, you know, make that declaration of that Spring Stampede, like all the marbles are going to be laid out. This is all going to be put to rest. You know, Ric Flair without a doubt is going to be competing in this match to show his support for WCW. Like, this is his home. He's been there since the Jim Crockett days, like back when they were a part of the NWA. Eventually, we also have like Diamond Dallas Page, who's also been fighting the NWO for the longest time, and the returning Sting, because Sting had been out of action since Halloween Havoc. So he did make his comeback on the March 29th edition of Nitro when they were in Canada. And, you know, Konnan's also in this because, like, given his history with, you know, being part of the NWO and the fact that his friends had stabbed him in the back, and, you know, Konnan's showing his support for WCW now. So, you know, he's looking to, you know, get back at them after, you know, what they've done to him since January 4th. Also, to note that this was also around the time that the Macho Man Randy Savage made his televised return. Now, he did make it like a bit of a return on the Nitro after Starrcade, where he helped out Ric Flair. As far as like an actual televised return, like having him like make his proper in-ring return. So yeah, so he does eventually make an appearance at Spring Stampede, and having him serve as the special guest referee in this 10-man tag elimination bout. Really putting his role as referee to good use here. Basically, the eliminations, which you need to know. Konnan would eliminate both Bryan Adams and Curt Hennig. So just to kind of start off, just to kind of get some of the lower tier guys out of the way. Even though I kind of hate saying lower tier, especially with Curt Hennig, given his credentials, especially in wrestling. But yeah, this is going to give Konnan some pretty big wins to a degree, and having him eliminate some of the NWO guys, having him kind of get his moment here, looking strong. So having Konnan pin Bryan Adams with the face buster, being the first one eliminated in the match. Konnan will continue that momentum by also making Hennig submit to the Tequila Sunrise. And, Konnan's just, doing a pretty good job starting off this main event of a match. But unfortunately, he would get the short end of the stick when he would be caught off guard by Scott Norton, who would eliminate Konnan with a snap powerbomb. Konnan's the first one of WCW out in the match. Hogan will also play a factor in this match, and he's going to get 2 eliminations also. He's going to eliminate Ric Flair. Basically, at some point, the referee's distracted, like Vincent or Miss Elizabeth, and they could distract the referee. And then along the way, Hogan slips out some brass knucks. Ric Flair turns around. He gets smack dab in the head with the brass knucks. Hogan hides evidence. Randy Savage turns around, not knowing what just happened, so he just makes that 3 count regardless. So Ric Flair's out of the match. DDP will also get eliminated in the match as well. It seemed like for a moment, Diamond Dallas Page has the advantage. He tries to, go for his diamond cutter. Let's see, maybe along the way, Page and Savage kind of get some kind of miscommunication along the way. Hogan gets back up. He rolls up DDP with with roll up using the tights. Randy Savage goes for that 3 count for DDP to get eliminated. So this doesn't sit well with DDP. Ever since his relationship with Bam Bam's been showing, it's we're starting to show a gradual change in his character, and he's starting to get a little more aggressive in his matches. So it seems like so far that the NWO's kind of getting an advantage over WCW, even despite the fact that it seemed like early on WCW had a bit of an advantage early on. Sting would also get back in the ring for the first time in months, so to capitalize on that, so he ends up eliminating Scott Norton after reversing his shoulder breaker into a Scorpion Death Drop. So Norton's out of the match. Sting also would eliminate Hulk Hogan to the Scorpion Deathlock and rupturing Hogan's knee as he's carried out to the back by officials. So Hogan, shortly after this, had to take time off due to undergoing knee surgery, so try to work that out, kind of like what they did in the actual show. Kevin Nash and Sting also have their confrontation going on, so former Wolfpack members going at it. Kevin Nash would eliminate Sting with the jackknife powerbomb, and it's not without shenanigans, so you have all these NWO members just coming out by the time that Goldberg could get back in the ring. Nash manages to make the cover after that jackknife powerbomb, so thus pinning Sting in the middle of the ring to eliminate him. So this all comes to a head, one-on-one. Goldberg and Nash, the fate of WCW, the fate of the NWOs in existence. If the NWO wins, they'll have all control of WCW programming. But if WCW wins, the NWO's no more. And so this one-on-one confrontation all determines what will happen from here on out. And we would also have some, actually one notable moment, I should say. So Kevin Nash, let's say at some point, he manages to get the advantage. Maybe Goldberg goes for a spear, Kevin Nash moves out of the way, Nash removes the turnbuckle pad and causing Goldberg's to land hard on the ring post. Kevin Nash goes for a jackknife. It seems like all is the end. Goes for a cover. 1, 2. Goldberg gets his foot on the ropes. Kevin Nash thinks he's won the match, but the crowd cheers because they see Goldberg's leg has been put his foot on the rope. So therefore, rope break. The match is still going on. Goldberg still has a lot of fighting left in him. Kevin Nash mocks Goldberg. He does that little signature pose used to set up for, Goldberg's jackhammer. So we would have Kevin Nash just kind of mock Goldberg by using his signature pose. and he tries to lift Goldberg up for what looks like to be a jackhammer, but Goldberg counters that into a suplex of his own, and then slamming him down with the jackhammer power slam to get the cover, to get the 3 count. Goldberg eliminates Kevin Nash. Thus, as a result, Team WCW wins, with Goldberg being the sole survivor of this match. And the crowd cheers, and the announcers put it over. It's like, after 2.5 years, the war between WCW and the NWO have finally come to an end. Team WCW wins this match once and for all. Tonight's our night. And you have all these, superstars, all these wrestlers from the locker room, like representing WCW. They all come out from the locker room, and they're all celebrating together in the ring, and, along with the world champion Goldberg. So just basically showing a lot of that unity that we've been seeing in WCW, just seeing all the faces and heels alike just coming together in harmony. And, after all this time, after nearly 3 years, the NWO is finally over. The crowd rejoice, and the show ends with all of them standing tall, including Goldberg. The announcers sign off. It's like they're just completely ecstatic now that war is over. Basically closing out Spring Stampede, the end of an era. And what a way to put an end to the NWO. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comment section below. I would have loved to have gotten Scott Hall to pop up on this pay-per-view, but I believe he was off TV during this time. But ideally I would have had Hall and Luger on this show, but they were out injured. So I had to kind of make the most out of the roster that they had, especially when it came to the NWO members that were already there at that point. Rest in peace, Scott Hall. Thank you for the memories. Stay tuned for my May pay-per-view event, which will be Slamboree, the first pay-per-view event without the NWO. Thank you all guys for watching, and until next time, this is Jimmy signing out. Due to the controversy surrounding Sting's elimination, Ric Flair comes out back in the arena with the microphone in hand. He's dressed up in his business suit and basically goes out to announce that the said NWO members that were interfering in the match must be escorted out of the arena immediately, and thus bringing out all these officials to come out there to make sure that the NWO doesn't return to the arena and do everything in their part to, potentially screw up the match. So the NWO are being taken to the back